right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, up on TSN Plus, TSN 2 later in the afternoon. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, and there's our buddy Jason Strudwick. How you doing, Struddy?
Good. How's everybody making out over there?
Well, we're doing okay. We're doing all right. It's a tough day today here at TSN. I think it's a very difficult day in Canadian broadcasting in general. Our good friend Darren Dutchyshen passed away yesterday, as you know, Struddy. Yeah. You and I were talking about it yesterday and today, and we've got James Duthie coming up. JD will join us a little bit later this afternoon, and JD worked with him forever, was one of his best friends. The two of them were really close, and I've been at TSN for 13 years, and one of the first people I remember meeting and wanting to meet was Dutch. And it's tough around here today. Everyone's got stories, and that kind of speaks to the magnitude of the man and the legacy he's leaving behind. Is everyone in the building's talking about Dutch. Everyone's talking about meeting him, stopping chats with him, his energy, his career, his charisma. He was one of one. There's no one like Darren Dutchyshen, and we'll miss him greatly.
What an outlook he had coming in that building every time, Hayes. Like, you would see him, it could be like really late night for a sports center. Like, he just always had the same approach. And I don't know, he always had that mojo about him. He had that strut down the hallways. He just had that zest for life. And he was just, I guess when you're gone, all you got is what people can say about you, and you just can't say enough about how nice a guy that was and how good to everybody he was in there. He was always having conversations about people's sports teams, and he's just an awesome guy. And I don't know what else to say about him. He's always nice, and I can remember there's a reason that Dutchie was not in charge of helping young broadcasters in there, because I had to do this thing with them. And I was just starting out, and I was like, I didn't really know what the heck I was doing. And I'm like, Dutch, like, how do you think my approach should be? And he just looked at me. And Duthie's so different, because he's like, look, just pretend you're having a conversation, with me, and just relax. And Dutchie goes, what are you talking about? He goes, you played in the NHL. Just let it fly. Let's go. Let's do this. And then he shrugged his shoulders and said, I'm ready. Let's go. Roll the camera. And I'm like, this guy is such a beauty. But that was his approach. Just let it fly. And there was no kind of tiptoeing around it. It was just like, let it fly and do it. He's like, what are you talking about? You played in the NHL. Let's just do this. Let's let it fly.
That was incredible.
And it was almost like that was calming, in a sense where he was like, he didn't care if it was the worst hit in the world, but his approach was, let's let this fly and see what happens.
That's it.
I was pretty lucky. I grown up out in Western Canada. He arrived in Edmonton, and he quickly became the guy at 11 o'clock with the sports show. And this was before, massive amounts of internet. There was no Instagram. So you actually had to watch TV to see all the highlights. And he was amazing. He delivered it. It always made you feel like you had been at the game. His sayings had so many great sayings. I remember my buddies and I would get together, we'd go hang out, then we'd put it on. Like, Dutchie's coming on. We'd all watch Dutchie. I believe it was Perry Slokowski, I think, at that time, or at one time, the two of them. And it was so much fun. And he brought so much life and, quite frankly, some levity to what was at times a little bit of a dry sportscast, but not with him. And so when he left Edmonton, people were rattled. We were so disappointed, but obviously he was bigger than just one city, and everyone got to enjoy him on the big broadcast. So I have such good memories of him, and getting to meet him a couple times. He didn't disappoint, right? The energy he brought, and I gave him a hard time about his tight suits. Like, he loves it. Like,
man,
he
loved it.
He was so much fun to be around.
Man.
He has the tightest suit, the tightest suit. Like, Dutchie was a guy that. Because you don't know, when you're talking about broadcasters, I mean, we can speak from our own experience. Like when I'm in, I guess I'll speak for myself. Obviously, for 3 hours, I talk a lot. I'm opinionated. I'm loud. I can be, whatever you want to call it. That's not me all the time. I understand when the mics go on. I have to be on. That's the job. And again, that's why I always take humor in that when it's like, man, you got a lot of opinions. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's what we do. That's how we operate here.
Right, but it's not like you walk around the grocery store like that.
And because that will happen is I will meet people, and then they'll even say through my wife, because my wife will come to me after and go, yeah, they're wondering what's wrong with Bryan, and she's just like, no, he's kind of quiet. Like, at times he's quiet because people expect that I'm walking into a room being like, hey, what do you think of the Leafs power play? You think Edmonton can get a win tonight? Dutchie was exactly what you expected he would be. Like that was the amazing thing about meeting him, because I had seen him on TV obviously forever, and meeting him, I'm like, man, this guy's even more energetic and
in real life,
in larger than life in real life. And like the term larger than life is gratuitously thrown around, right? It's thrown around all the time. You get someone that doesn't say a word ever. It's like, larger than life. No, not really larger than life. But Dutch was actually larger than life. And to the point where, like around here, I'll give you an example behind the scenes. When you saw him, you talked to him. And he talked with everybody. Like, that's what I have such an appreciation for. I think the greatest testament to a guy like Dutch, or anyone that just sees everyone equally, is it didn't matter who you were, what you did, where you came from, what you're about. I would see him talking with everybody, and he wouldn't stop that conversation because someone else walked by. He'd wave, hey, how are you? But he'd continue the conversation with whoever he was talking to. But when we hit a break, we have like 3 minutes to get back, right? Like, so I sometimes will dart out, go to the washroom, and if I come back and Dutch is there, I'm like, I'm screwed. Like, I'm not getting back. I'm not going to make it back because I know what's coming. I know it's going to be, hey, what do you do? And then a stop and chat. I'm like, Dutch, man, I got 30 seconds. I got to get going here. And that was him. Like, he was always talking. He was always,
Hayes,
full of life. The guy was just, he was one of a kind. He was incredible.
He used to kill me. He did a couple, like, I did some hockey games with him, and the timelines on those when the producer, Mocker or Bill Dodson, gets in your ear and says, you got to get out of this.
Yeah.
You have to get out. With that guy didn't care if he burned 3 commercials. I'm telling you, they would say to Dutch, we got to go, and he would just ignore it, and he would start either a brand new conversation, like from the start, or he would just start tossing in, like Duthie always just kind of gets to the meat of it, and there's not much opinion from him. Or Dutch would go on a rant about his opinion. He's like, I can't stand. And they're like, get out. And he would just blow by the stop sign and say, no way, I'm not doing it.
I know.
The best.
It was incredible. Like because he used to co-host with us, a lot. Before he got sick, he would come in. No, I wouldn't say a lot, but he probably did 10, 12 shows. And he would come in, and like the rest of us, it was kind of, hey, we'll see where it goes. Like that's kind of the nature of our show. We're prepared. We understand topics we're going to get to, guests, certain things we want to touch on, and we prepare for bits and all that. But a large portion of our show and what makes our show work is it's spontaneous. And we get on the air, and to take a term from Dutch, we let it fly.
That's it.
And that's why Dutch was a pretty good, he was a good fit for us, but he was even more of let it fly than us. And we are kind of the definition of let it fly, where I'd be like, Dutch, because I'd be thinking the same thing. I'm like, we got to hit a break, but Dutchie's starting a story about, being in Regina.
And by the way, he's not stopping.
And he's not going to stop.
No,
and it's just going to continue to go. And it's, he'll be sorely missed around here. And he had the tightest suits, the tightest shirts. He was jacked. He was jacked, man. And he was just a great guy. So, we'll miss Dutch, and we're going to be talking about him, a lot throughout the afternoon and certainly in the weeks to come. And our buddy James Duthie will join us in studio in about 10 minutes. He and Dutchie were neighbors, golfing buddies, colleagues, friends. I mean, the whole nine. So we'll catch up with JD, and there's a special coming up on SportsCenter with James Duthie, Jennifer Hedger, Rod Smith. That's another thing. You talk about gold standards and talents. Like, that's a term that people use in broadcasting all the time. It's your talent. They're a great talent. They've got great talent. Jennifer Hedger, Darren Dutchyshen, I mean, that's the gold standard. That's Mount Rushmore type stuff in terms of Canadian broadcasting. They were phenomenal. And, we're thinking of everyone today. And obviously our hearts are broken for the Dutchyshen family and everyone that was close to Dutch. So we'll be talking about him extensively. And I know if he was on SportsCenter tonight, he'd be jacked because, we got an all-Canadian game going. You're out there in Edmonton, Strud, and the game's in Vancouver. But what's the energy level like? Are people nervous? Are people excited? I mean, how do you gear up for it's the best 2 out of 3 now, and Vancouver's got home ice.
Yeah, they sure do. You know, and I honestly think, like a lot of Oilers fans, I think they thought this was going to be a lot easier than it was going to be. You know, Vancouver's a good team, and they've taken on a lot of the attributes of their head coach. You know, that he's very direct, plays hard, doesn't cheat the game. You know, could score a lot of goals, was tough. And you could tell, like, even after the last game, you know, Rick Tocchet called out, you know, half dozen of his players and singled out one, Elias Peterson.
Said you can't win with 12.
Yeah, so I mean that's pretty clear. I don't know how much more direct you can get. So if I'm in that dressing room and I'm wondering, like, am I one of those 6 that's not performing? You probably are. You know, that's probably the truth. So I really look at this Vancouver team. The fact they're getting Carson Soucy back, he's you know, not that he's not Quinn Hughes or Cale Makar, but he really impacts the series. He's big, he's physical, takes up space, and the Oilers are getting a lot of shots, but they got to find a way to get a little bit more quality shots. And then, you know, you can speak to this a little more, but getting traffic to the net in front of Sheloff's, but then getting some second chance opportunities because, you know, they've only scored 3 goals last game, and I think they've had more shots, but it should be translating to more goals. And it's not. And these games are a lot tighter than they maybe should have been.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I think you can spin it both ways. I think Edmonton should feel better probably about the way they've been playing collectively over 4 games, but that's meaningless now, right? It's 2-2. Vancouver, if Pettersson arrives, if he shows up, that's going to go a long way. You know, it looks like Mikheyev is going to be a healthy scratch tonight. I'm not surprised. I mean, that's one of the 6 guys.
Wow, healthy scratch.
Yeah, I mean, they paid him. What did they pay him? 4.5, 4.75, and it just never worked. He hasn't scored. He scored like 1 goal in his last something ridiculous 60 or 70 games. So he's coming out. But you know, if Pettersson arrives, if Sheloff's continues to play the way he's been playing, like goaltending is a huge part of the conversation because you know you get Sheloff's and Pickard. So you know who's one of them's going to give up a bad goal at some point over the next 3 games that is going to feel backbreaking. And the question is, will it be backbreaking? Will their respective team allow it to fold into a really tough scene? But I am curious to see how both teams react tonight because, you know, again, Rick Tocchet calling them out. That building will be rocking. Like, there's no question about that. And yet Edmonton probably feels, like you said at the start of the round, like they should be in a position to close here. So, yeah, we will tee that up throughout the afternoon. We've got James Duthie coming up. Ryan Rishaug will join us just after 5 o'clock. Pierre LeBrun coming up. We've got a couple of games. You know, the Hurricanes looking to survive tonight, just like Colorado did last night. You know, there's something about these teams that are down 3-1. They will not fold. Where, you know, Boston, they found a way to win on the road. Colorado found a way to win on the road. Carolina.
Ballsy win by Colorado. Man.
Really,
that's
really much. Yeah. There was.
Like Cale Makar, that performance by him last night, like that's, I don't know, that's gutsy, man. Like that's pure talent, and that's gutsy too.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's what you expect out of your best players.
Yes.
Right? Like Makar scores 2 and McKinnon turns the lights out. Like McKinnon ends it. Where Dallas had some pressure going. It's a 1-goal game late. That building was, you know, there was some nervous energy in there for sure. But that goes to overtime. Maybe Colorado's packing their bags right now. And it was McKinnon who decided we're not even going to get to that point. And that's what you need, you know. And I don't know if they have enough to get back into the series and officially win it, but I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if any of these teams ended up winning Game 6. I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina won tonight. I wouldn't be surprised if Boston won. I wouldn't be surprised if Colorado won and pushed it to 7. They're in tough, but they're proud teams with a lot of talent, right, Struddy? They're all good teams.
They are, but I mean, if you're the New York Rangers, you know you're up 3, and then you know Panarin hasn't been exactly a stud the last couple games. So I think this is, of all the teams, I think that's the team that probably is feeling it the most. You know, you got to win in Carolina. You got to get that clincher because you go back to New York. And I know it's home, but the pressure of not delivering in that city when you're up 3-0. In Carolina, I feel like they play a relentless style of game. Like they just keep coming at you. And, you know, their style of game is probably not going to change a lot, you know, whether it's Game 1 or Game 7. So I'm really interested to see what happens. That's, to me, is must watch to see how the Rangers react to get that finishing punch on
Yeah,
these
you're
guys.
right.
I think Carolina feels that they, like most teams, are like, we're just going to chip away, see what the hell happens. I think Carolina truly believes that they can come back and win this series.
Yeah.
It starts with their coach and how pumped up
sure.
he is and how motivated he gets them. But I feel like they believe they can do this, and it's not like they're going to play wait and see tonight. Like, they will try to steamroll the Rangers out of the building tonight.
Yeah.
Which is what you got to do.
Yeah, nothing to
I agree.
lose.
I
Everyone
agree.
wrote them off. We wrote them off.
They're down
4 days ago.
3-0. Yeah.
Yeah, so now you've taken it to Game 6 at home. You should feel pretty good about yourself. And I think your point about Rod Brind'Amour is really well done. Like, he's going to say, guys, we've played the same way for 82 games, plus the playoffs. Like, just keep bringing it. Every time we just keep bringing it. I feel like this is going to 7.
Ooh, if it goes to 7, that MSG will be wild, man.
Oh.
It'll be nervous, but wild. And the same thing, if the Knicks can't close, like what a few days in New York it could be.
Wow.
All right, James Duthie coming up in studio. More on our good friend Darren Dutchyshen, who passed away yesterday morning at the age of 57. Duthie will join us to chat about Dutchie and celebrate his life and look ahead to the games tonight, the PGA Championships. There's my boy Xander. I told you, my man X.
No, dude.
Yes.
Every
I call
week
him
you
X.
say he never closes, and the guy has one good. I guarantee. I'll bet you. We'll get into.
I'm concerned about closing. I understand that, but because you got Finau there, Rory looks very good, very comfortable, very loose, very happy.
Did you see Scotty Scheffler's start?
No, I didn't. Did he buckle out of the gate?
No, first hole fairway, holes it to go 2 under. Like, that's how he started the tournament.
Of course he is. He's 2 under through 5. You know who's slashing is your boy Rombo. Apparently he just can't handle it. So we'll get into that more still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Our buddy Ryan Rashog later this afternoon. Pierre LeBrun later this afternoon. Steve Sands on the PGA Championship. Bryan Hayes, Jason Strudwick, the O-Dog Jeff O'Neill, and a common theme throughout the afternoon on this show and certainly throughout TSN will be celebrating the life of our good friend and colleague Darren Dutchyshen. And I'm not sure there's a better person to chat about, the legacy of Dutch than James Duthie, who joins us now in studio. And JD, I know, he was more than a colleague to you, a friend, neighbor.
Mm-hmm. He's the reason I moved to Aurora because when we started doing SportsCenter together in 2000, he talked about Aurora nonstop, and I was still living down off the Danforth, just starting a family. Oh, sorry, I was in Markham, I think, by then, and he talked nonstop about how great Aurora was, and I ended up moving up there. And the funny thing was, one of Dutchie's patented go-to lines. One of the things about Dutch is that every day he came in with one story or one joke, and he would tell everybody in the building the same joke with just as much passion.
Yeah.
And one of his go-tos every spring, the first warm day, he'd say, "Big day in Aurora. First time I went shirtless jogging. All the ladies go to the front windows and get themselves in a lather."
Yeah.
Every year.
Yeah.
So no joke, I moved to Aurora, and I was in a rental house while I was doing this reno, and I literally got to Aurora with the moving truck. They were unloading my stuff. And who jogs by shirtless but Dutchie? I didn't know that I'd moved onto the street of his best buddy.
Yeah.
And so I literally been there for half an hour, and here comes this massive man,
Unreal.
sweating, jogging. Duth, welcome to Aurora.
Yeah, the shirtless thing. It's funny you say that because I had friends texting me today about Dutch, and one of my buddies said, "Yeah, I saw him like 2 years ago down on Queen West playing basketball without a shirt on." I'm like, yeah, probably. Every single day you probably saw.
First of all, he was a massive man.
Massive,
just ripped.
dude. Massive guy.
Even when he was in treatment, one of his doctors said, "You're the only guy I've ever had who's gained muscle on chemo," because he worked out 3 times as hard.
Yeah.
Because he took so much pride in that. But I think sometimes people that see this big, beefy Saskatchewan boy, he was the opposite of a meathead. He was really bright, really smart. Like, not only he would have been great doing radio because he could talk any sport for hours. You could have him talk baseball, talk tennis, talk golf, whatever. He knew it all, and he was so quick-witted. That was the challenge. When I started SportsCenter with him, I was intimidated as heck because I was more cerebral, like a low-key, skinny little broadcaster. And here was this mammoth of a man, first of all, this huge, charismatic presence. And he was also really quick. And so it kept you on your toes a ton. Rodsky was talking about today. Rod went back-to-back with me and Dutchie as partners on SportsCenter. And so he had to be the Ed McMahon, the straight guy all the time. But we had different senses of humor. So Rod said one night, he said he saw an opening for a joke. It was a NASCAR highlight pack. And one of the guys' windshields got fogged up. And so Rod said, I'm going to throw in a joke here. I'm going to be the funny guy for once. And so Rod says, the windshield fogged up. Hey, Dutchie, just kind of like back in high school. And Dutchie, without missing a beat, goes, yeah, Rod, and just like him, you were alone. So he just was so quick with the one-liners. And the stuff he got away with, Rod and Jen and I are going on at 6 and telling stories. And the one thing that's challenging is he was so offside.
Yes.
Offside in the most lovable way.
Incredible.
Jimmy, his home run call, I thought about it today, and I'm going to say it now because it's so funny. I laughed the whole way to the cottage. Edgar Renteria hit a home run, and he goes, Renteria gonorrhea. And it's just like, who says that?
It's one of his classics. One summer was always the toughest time to do SportsCenter because it was just baseball. And we do tons of baseball highlights. And I got bored one summer, so I came up with this lame thing called Home Run Call Theme Night. So every night I'd have a different theme, and every time there was a home run, there was like 20 home runs we do in the show, I'd just yell out. So one night I'd do types of cheese. And I'd be like, deep to left field, Gouda. And I'd just say a different type of cheese every time. So one night I did, my grandmother had passed away, and I said, tonight's theme is things my late Nana never said. So
God,
one of the home runs was like, okay, Sammy Sosa, deep to left field, bootylicious.
Yeah.
And Dutchie right away goes, I tell you one thing she did say, Dutchie-licious. and I said, Dutch, that's my dead grandma. And he goes, she wasn't dead back then.
Yeah.
Who could get away? Who could get away with riffing on your colleague's passed away Nana,
right?
Other than Dutchie, and I still laugh about that to this day because he had a wink about him that he could say those things and get away with them because he was never serious.
No,
and it was
exactly.
he was so great.
Yeah, he was a throwback basically. In terms of the way that he would operate. Yeah, treat everyone with respect. It wasn't.
No,
that's the thing. It wasn't that the camera would go off and he'd.
That's why he's beloved by everybody. Every cameraman, every soundboard operator, every editor, he treated everybody the same way.
Yeah,
and I think that's why. And he, when people say larger than life, it gets overused. But he walked into a studio and he commanded it, and he came in every night. Like imagine, you get your dream job and you come in walking on air. He came in that way every night for 30 years, like it was his first night of his dream job. And SportsCenter's a grind.
Yeah.
Like I did it for maybe 3 years, and it was tough. Like when I got the hockey job, I was ready for a change. He's done that 30 years. Mm-hmm. He started with Mike Toth, and then went to Rod, and then went to me, and then went to Blake Price and Jen, and then he did the 2 o'clock with Kate for a while, and there were others in there at the same. It's just remarkable, and he still loved it. To be as sick as he was and come out of treatment and come back and. Look, he was hoping for a miracle, but he knew he was probably on borrowed time. To come back and do SportsCenter again because that's where he wanted to be, I don't know that I can make that choice.
Yeah,
right?
no, that is a very good point. That at that point, Dutchie was well aware of the scenario he was in. And there's in the medical field, they're blunt with you, like they're very honest with you, and I think they were very honest with him. And as a result, you see him on Instagram and Twitter, and you see Kate, and like he didn't just sit around and say, check please. Like this guy was flying around the world.
They went all sorts.
They were
of places.
everywhere. Like following Dutch, I was living vicariously through him because I'd see him post something. I'd say, oh, he's in Europe. Oh, he's back in New York. Hey, he's at the Ryder Cup.
He brought his kids.
He's everywhere.
He loved his kids too. Great dad, and Paige and Tyler and Brett, and he brought the boys to the Masters. Kate arranged. Kate, by the way, has been phenomenal these last few years. But he brought his boys to the Masters, and he was so proud, man. He came to our house to pick up his tickets the morning, and I think that was just the thrill of his life. He'd been there before, but to bring his kids to the Masters was unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember seeing Dutch when I was playing in junior, actually, because his kid was a really good hockey player playing junior hockey.
Yeah.
And that's when I first met him, actually, in the court. I was a healthy scratch, and Dutch, he was walking around. I'm like, there's Dutch, like, you know, and he knew my dad, and we stopped and talked, and that was when he was, that would have been late, I guess, 2000, 2001, and he was Dutch by then, you know, and that speaks to how long he was kind of the man. And I remember watching him walk away, and everyone was like, there's Dutch. And stop and chats with people. Like, we were joking about that. Like, if you'd see him and you had 30 seconds to get back and you run into Dutch, you're like, we're just late.
Well, that was the other thing, hosting the show with him. If you didn't, you know, when you're hosting SportsCenter as a pair, you get maybe 30 seconds off the top of the show, maybe 30 seconds in the middle, maybe a minute at the end. If you didn't talk first, you were screwed because he was going to fill the whole time.
Yeah.
Or you know, if you're the odd time he'd host hockey and okay guys, we got to tape a 3-minute panel. He might get the question to O-Dog 2 minutes in.
Jimmy, I was saying that, like, hey, you guys know, like, when that guy says you got to get out of this, it means get out. And that he would start a whole new conversation in chat, and then you would hear the producer saying, we got to go. And the guy would not care.
Yeah.
Just because he loved, he loved it so much. He loved talking about sports so much.
And he always had something to say, right? Like that. I got to do one SportsCenter hit with him after a Leaf game last year. But I know, you've talked about this. Noodles has done a ton of stand-ups with him, and he like Noodles will, when he's back, will tell these stories. But Dutch would be talking about the game. You know, like a lot of hosts would be like, so your thoughts? And Dutch he'd go through the whole thing and then say, thanks, Jamie. And they'd throw him back. Like Noodles would be like, that was a good analysis, Dutch.
I had to do some stand-ups when I was doing my own segment too. And as the host, he would fire in little barbs too. I'd bring up a player and he'd be like, yeah, I can't stand that guy. That team will never win with him anyway. Okay, back to you. And he loved the little chirps like that.
Yeah.
You know, if cutbacks ever forced them to do a one-person panel, like he would have been the perfect one-person panel. He could have been the host and all three analysts together. He was so mischievous. I really got to know him. You got to know my family at the 2006 World Juniors when I brought all three of my kids out. It was out in Vancouver. And it was Uncle Dutchie. He came up on the plane to introduce himself to my kids, and they were young. They were 3, 5, and 6, maybe. And it was Uncle Dutchie the rest of the trip. And can we hang out with Uncle Dutchie? And we're down on an off day in the pool, and we're in the hot tub. And so it's Dutchie and me and my 3 kids. And he goes, hey, kids, can Uncle Dutchie tell you a secret? And they're like, sure. He goes, I just peed in the hot tub. You guys can do it too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Dutch, you can't. I'm trying to teach you. But that's anything he could do could just stir up a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, that's great.
He just loved it.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, he will be missed. I mean, Dutchie was one of one, and I don't want you to give away what we're going to see at 6:00. But you're doing a sit down with Jen and with Rod,
we're just going to tell stories and probably cry a little bit. I think we'll have the Kleenex boxes ready, although I've done a lot of that the last 24 hours, so hopefully not too much. But Jen's worked with him for so long. Yeah. And you know, Rod from the beginning. Rodsky and Dutch was one of my favorite pairings ever. That promo that, if you haven't seen it, go find it on Twitter. The Rodsky and Dutch promo, like Starsky and Hutch, is one of the greatest things TSN ever did. Yeah. So I think we're just going to try to tell stories that we can tell, the PG stories about the man and how much we loved him.
Well, I appreciate you coming in here and talking about your friend and, you know, a guy that obviously made his mark on everyone here at TSN. I mean, that really speaks to his legacy, doesn't it? That everyone loved Dutch.
And he never wanted to be like the victim when he got sick. He always made light of it because he didn't want anybody's pity, and he always was so positive about it. I was looking back at our text chains last night, and I texted him from Super Bowl, and I said, Dutch, can I pick you up anything? I'm in Vegas at Super Bowl. And he texts back, yeah, go to the cancer-free store and pick me up one of everything. So it's just, you know, and that's the way he was. He didn't want, we had some good heart-to-hearts over the years, the last few years, and played some golf together. He loved playing golf. Mm-hmm. But
how tight was his golf gear?
Oh,
you wear tight
so
golf
tight.
gear, but
you
does
guys
anyone...
make fun of me.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to wear really small because I don't have the body.
Right.
But I don't know what it doesn't matter. He was probably in double extra large, but those bodies, he was just ripping them.
Yeah.
It was painted on his golf. His golf shirts were painted
Whenever
on.
I saw him in golf gear, I'm like, that is the tightest golf shirt of all time.
Yeah.
And Dutchie just rocked it.
Yeah, but he worked it. He was a fashion guy too. He liked going to see the ponies and dressing up like Kentucky Derby type stuff.
Absolutely.
He was a bit of a fashionista for a Porcupine Plain, Saskatchewan boy.
Yep, he sure was. We'll miss him dearly. All right, JD, great seeing you, man. I wish it was under better circumstances.
Nah, this is good. This is good therapy. We love the guy, and it's fun to tell stories about him.
Absolutely. There's James Duthie chatting about our good friend and someone we certainly will not forget, our buddy Darren Dutchyshen, who passed away yesterday. And more on that with SportsCenter at 6 p.m. Like JD mentioned himself, Jennifer Hedger, Rod Smith will be celebrating the life of Darren Dutchyshen. We'll continue that throughout the afternoon. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Ryan Rashog will join us in about 20 minutes. Game 5, Oilers, Canucks tonight. Blue Jays off today. They're coming home tomorrow. I don't know what kind of reception they're expecting. It is a long weekend. Right, it is May 2-4. Like when we were in high school, when I was in high school, university, this was the biggest long weekend of the year.
Dude, it was mayhem.
Mayhem.
But there would be some weekends. I don't know where you went for May 2-4, Hayes, but I did a lot of Muskoka time.
Yes,
you could get snow on May 2-4.
Yeah, man. You could. That was what sucked.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it was
snow.
Totally unpredictable weather. You know, like sometimes if you got a great weekend though, because that was the move, right? You get the boys together, whatever. You're going up north, and if you get a good weather weekend, it absolutely set a tone for the whole summer. But you'd also get up there, and it would be -3 when the sun went down. You're like, what the hell are we supposed to do with this? But yeah, pardon my ignorance, Struddy, but you guys, this is a national holiday, right? Like
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we celebrate.
That.
We have
like,
same thing. We have weekends here. We have Mondays. We have the same kind of stuff. You'll find it. We're very similar.
I just wanted to clarify.
No,
that.
don't get upset.
Of course, it's the coast to coast.
Get out of here.
I don't know, man. That was a really stupid question. It's not like Family Day.
Dude,
I know
you're
is a
usually
stupid
you're
creation.
like You're the same as Duthie. You're on it. That was the dumbest thing you've ever said.
And that was ignorant. And I apologize to everyone outside the Greater Toronto Area or the province of Ontario. I owe you a sincere apology, and I'm granting you one right now. That was ignorant.
Well, I'll try to save you. So let me ask you this: I like long weekends as well. If you had to choose one night to go the hardest with your buddies, was it Friday, Saturday, or Sunday night, knowing that Monday was a day off?
Man, Sunday felt good, didn't it, Strud? Sunday was awesome.
I couldn't believe it. I get to Sunday, I'm like, we're still got another day? Are you kidding me?
Are you guys serious? My buddies, as soon as they got out of their car, it was put the pedal to the ground until they had to go home. Yeah. It was... Sunday night at 10 o'clock was like, okay, let's tone it down a little bit and get home.
I hear what you're saying, and you're right, because this happens every trip you go on, whether it's a roadie or you're in the air, you're flying somewhere. You get there, and the energy's so high, and it's like you're flooring it night one. Like, no question about that.
But Hayes, at 24 or something, you're flooring it the whole time.
That's what I'm saying. What I think Struddy's pointing to is, like, Sundays are out of the mix if you have to work on Mondays. But if you don't have to work on Monday and you get to Sunday and you've got even a quarter tank, you're like, let's go. Like, let's get after it here.
I don't think I've ever told you guys this story, but Noodles and a bunch of guys who went to Vegas, like let's say 5 guys, and he and I and one other guy decided to stay an extra day. So I forget which day. Let's say it was
for
Sunday
what
night.
reason though? I'd love to know.
What a shock! I got an idea.
For what reason?
Well, we already, I think we had planned. Maybe we got a discount on the flight or whatever. Everyone else was leaving on Sunday. We decided to stay Sunday night.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited. Like, it's my buddy Noodles. Just he and I and this other guy Sean Haggerty kind of looked a little bit like a hobbit. So it was good to have him around. And so I'm ready to go out hard Sunday night. And we wake up from Sunday morning. We go down the pool. And he's like, "Hey, just so you know, man, I'm like, what are we gonna do tonight? I can't wait." He's like, "I can't go with you guys tonight." I'm like, "Why not?" He's like, "I'm going on a date." And I'm like,
You're
what?
kidding me? In Vegas?
He's like, I'm going on a date. I'm like, where'd you meet her? He's like, at the pool yesterday or something. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So he went bowling our last night in Vegas together. So me and the Hobbit, we had to go out. And obviously it was good to have him there. But and I didn't see him till he came home that night. I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's outrageous behavior.
That better be your soon-to-be wife.
Right.
Like if you go on a date in Vegas.
Yes.
And that's what he did. That's what he did to me.
I can't believe we haven't heard this story. I know why Noodles hasn't told that story, because he'd be embarrassed with himself.
And bowling?
And bowling in Vegas? That's worse than trivia in New York or Nashville.
I'm like, what are you doing? Is this like 11-year-old birthday party? That's what you do when you're 11 years old?
Bolorama in Vegas. That's crazy.
I couldn't believe it. And like me, I said, like me and the Hobbit, we had a good night. We had a good time. But I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe this guy.
You love. I mean, you're a 12 out of 10 if you're with the Hobbit, right, Strud? Like
feeling good.
Yeah, you would have been feeling uber confident. But
and honestly, you can't go wrong in Vegas. You just find a bar and sit down.
It's
like
great.
you're sprinkling in the infield, everything's going well,
Yes.
but not old Uncle Noodles.
No.
So I can't meet you out tonight. What do you mean? I'm going on a
wild,
date.
man.
I was like, you never leave a man behind. He doesn't believe in that. He doesn't subscribe to that.
You know what that sounds like to me? That's like Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting. Like, didn't go to see Carlton Fisk hit the home run, right? Passed the ticket across the bar and said, I've got to go see about a girl. Like, that's Noodles going bowling, seeing about a girl in Vegas. That's crazy. Only didn't marry her, evidently.
That's what I mean. If it becomes your wife or a love story, like I get it.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, I would never do that. I would never ever do that to my buddies.
That's
he
crazy.
did it without even hesitating.
Like a date. What if she was from Chicago or something? It's like, where do you see this going anyway? You're in Vegas.
It's the most outrageous thing I've ever heard. It's the most outrageous thing, and I'm gonna bring it up. As soon as I see him again.
Yeah, we got to talk to him.
And then
I might send him a text
he doesn't
on the break.
like water.
Yeah.
How do you meet someone at the pool when you don't even like the water? Like, where were you? Like, I just don't. We go on trips with him. He doesn't want to go in the water. He doesn't like sand.
No.
It's just crazy.
I know.
It's one of my lowest points of our relationship.
That changes the way I look at him. And I Noodles is one of my best friends, and I admire him. And I have basically he had a 10 out of 10 rating prior to that, and now his rating is sinking. Like it's like an Uber driver, and he had a 5-star. He's down to like a 4.2 after that.
Yeah. Like if he had said, I'm taking her in a chopper up to a private dinner set up on a mountaintop that he had to pay 10 grand for, I'll buy into it. But to go bowling in Vegas,
no.
I didn't even know you could bowl.
Obscene.
Yeah, I didn't know it was made 2-4 in Alberta, and I didn't know you could bowl in Vegas. I didn't know that.
Just imagine, too, he hates germs. Imagine how much hand sanitizer that guy used to stick his fingers in those bowling balls. Like,
he would have been.
Probably reeked
that guy.
of it.
That guy melts through sanitizer bottles.
Yes.
Like he loves it.
Yeah.
He does,
Too bad he doesn't brush his teeth with the same intensity that he does, sanitize his hands.
He will sanitize. Like, we'll be in studio. He'll do a multiple sanitize within a segment. I'm like, you haven't been anywhere. You didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, you haven't been anywhere. It's like a guy with a mask on in his car. It's like there's only your breath in there.
Right, dude. Like,
there's
no one's
only
around.
your breath.
Guys, he acts like he's a surgeon, and all he grabs is chicken feed. He just touches a chicken finger and puts it in his mouth. It's not like he's doing sushi or something good. Like the chicken finger, there's no disease on the chicken finger. It is resistant to everything. Yeah. And that's all he eats.
That is,
I don't get it. He's incredible.
He's one of a kind, man. He really is. Yeah, and I think he must be going to the game tonight, right? He's in Vancouver. So he's probably going to be on SportsCenter afterwards, sanitizing right below where the line, below the camera. He will be sanitizing underneath and letting everyone know what he thinks about the game tonight. But yeah, so we got the game. We got Schauger coming up. Ryan Rishaug in about 15 minutes. We're tracking the PGA Championship, and I haven't, Tiger Woods, we haven't mentioned him yet. 1 over par. Like, obviously, he's not winning the tournament. He wasn't going to win the tournament, but these guys are shooting the lights out, or at least a lot of the guys atop the leaderboard here. And there's some big names like Schauffele,
Scotty
Finau.
Vail said, 10 or 15 and win it. Like,
well, I
they're
saw
torching that place.
Johnson Wagner was saying last night while he was walking around the course and chunking chips that he's heard
his
and he
little
thinks,
videos, by the way, like where
they're funny.
he could chop it. Oh man, they're funny.
They're wild because half the time he hits good shots, and then other times I saw him skull one the other day. And I'm like, this guy was a tour pro. He's got a stash and a tight tuck on a khaki pant. He's dressed like Caber. Like he's dressed like Brian McCabe at the draft. But Wagner was saying he thinks it'll be 20 under. And I'm not sure. I don't know if it'll get to that. I think it'll toughen up. But if it rains and the greens soften, like Schauffele shot 9 under, that's he's not going to do that 4 times, but for fun. I mean, I think the winner could be 20 under, which means if you're 1 over and you're Tiger Woods, I don't know what's the cut line tomorrow. It's probably under. It's probably in the red. Like he might have to shoot a 68, 69 tomorrow to make the cut. So
he ain't doing it, man.
I don't think he's got it in him at this point, but. Yeah, we'll see. So we're tracking the PGA Championship again. The Jays are off today. They're back in action over the weekend with Tampa in town. We'll look ahead to that series throughout the afternoon. Some interesting comments from Brad Marchand. He was back speaking with the media, and he was asked about the Sam Bennett punch, how he reacts to it, but also what he makes of the toughness of playoff hockey. And he had a really, really, I think, honest comment that is going to shock a lot of people. I'll bet you bother a lot of people, naturally. People that don't play aren't in danger of actually being hurt, but they'll take issue with it. But we'll play it. We'll get into it into the next hour, and Ryan Rashad will join us live from Vancouver ahead of Game 5 tonight. Jason Strudwick in here with the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill. I'm Bryan Hayes. Hour 2 coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.